The Veteran Project. 4 vets, 5 vets.
We are not responsible for any trauma, PTSD, tinnitus, or flashbacks during this podcast.
Hooray!
What's going on, everybody? We are back. Finally, yes, we took a long time off, and it was nice in a way. So we are here for season 2. I got my main producer Jay. He's back there behind the camera netting.
I'm over here. What's up, guys?
There he is. He's showing off his trophy today. You know, dude's getting fucking chiseled and shit. So
Trying.
And sitting across from me, we got our first guest. In the way that I used to always start off these podcasts. Who the fuck are you?
I'm the main man, Mike White. That's what everybody calls me.
What's going on, Mike?
Not much, you know. Thanks for having me. You know, it was a good time coming down here, you know.
I know. What would it take about an hour?
No, about 50 minutes or so. It wasn't too bad, yeah.
Nice.
Right, straight shot down 495, you know, no complaints.
Beautiful morning.
Oh, yeah, you know, foliage with the sun.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good time, you know.
A little fog in the background.
Oh, yeah.
And, no, it's, yeah, we're getting into that type of season now where it's like, all right, the days are getting numbered on a motorcycle.
A little chillier in the mornings, a little darker sooner, you know, so it kind of puts a damper on stuff. But when you can get out, it's the most beautiful time of year. Perfect hoodie weather on the bike, you know.
I mean, even when we did the Kank trip, you know, like I was so shocked that it was like 75 degrees
I know.
when we get up there.
It was so hot. I know, it was crazy.
And it was downpouring.
Yeah.
Down here.
We couldn't have chose a better weekend for that, honestly.
Thank God, you know, one of our former guests, Mike Blaze, he had a weekend on the regular scheduled weekend for our Kank trip. But it all worked out. So everybody was happy. Great weekend. You cooked. And
Terribly.
I still don't know what was going on with those burgers.
I don't know. But did you die?
Dude, I mean, like, I remember, Bowker was like, what the fuck are these?
I don't know. Walmart burgers falling apart on
They
us,
must
you
have
know?
came down from Canada.
I don't know what the deal was with those, but they would not stay together.
So, Mike, now you served in the U.S. Army.
That's correct.
Now, what year did you go into the U.S. Army?
So I joined in 2004, right out of high school. I was 18. I went regular Army for 3 years, and then I did 10 years in the reserves after that.
All right, so going in 2004, damn, you old. I was only 14.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
So when you went into the Army, what was your mindset? Did you just want to get the fuck out of town, or are you following in someone's footsteps? Or
So, no, I don't have any cool stories or, you know, any like reasoning, like, you know, an inspiration to go. I was just going nowhere fast and really had nowhere to do with my life. I knew I didn't want to go to college. And one day the Army recruiter, he called my house, and my mother's like, yeah, you know, somebody called looking for you. You should, you know, this is before cell phones. So they called the house.
Yeah.
And it's like, you should call him back. And so I did, and, you know, ended up signing up. And, you know, it was a good time, you know. We had the intention of going there to be, for me to sign up to be either a tanker or I wanted to be a helicopter mechanic or whatever. The recruiter drops me off at MEPS, and he comes back at the end of the day to pick me up. And he's like, so did you get tanker? Did you get, you know, you're going to be an Apache mechanic or anything like that?
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I'm going to be an airborne combat engineer. And he's like, what? He's like, that is not what we talked about.
Like, that's a complete 180,
Yeah.
man.
I don't know. He seemed like he was upset about it. I don't know, maybe because they get different points or something, or how much stuff they have, jobs they have to fill and stuff, you know. So needs the Army and all that.
So now you have regular Army engineer and then airborne engineer.
So
Is it the same thing? Or?
it's the same thing. I was just I signed up for airborne school to be assigned to an airborne unit.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Army's got way too much shit going on.
The Veteran Project is sponsored by Pins.
Thank you so much to Pins for giving our veterans a complimentary gift certificate to Pins in Kingston from Milford, Massachusetts. Also, be sure to check out Pins in Milford with their newly renovated recreation room with 3 bays of champion axe throwing and 4 new bays for darts with a self-scoring system. For more information, visit pins.com. That is PINZ.com.
It's like, just call it what it is.
Yeah.
So I guess it's all about having the little arm patches.
Yeah,
and
you
stuff
know.
like that. So so 2004, you joined the Army. You went to, passed your MEPS exam. When you got into boot camp, what was that like for you?
So, first time ever on an airplane, first time out of New England was going to the Army. And, so it was a very interesting experience. I flew down to Missouri and I went to, like the Army does, if you're in a combat arms MOS, they do this thing called OSIT. It's one station unit training. So like infantry, combat engineers, artillery and stuff like that. They'll take them and you go to basic training and AIT together.
Yeah.
It's with the same drill sergeants the whole way through. And so when we showed up there, it's like, the middle of the night, they time it like that for a reason, I think, and we, drill sergeant gets on the bus and yells at us, get outside and everything, and you line up outside and we're just going to, just your entry, the integration there where you get uniforms and your haircut and all that. You're nervous because you're going to get yelled at and all that other stuff. But
And you're 18.
exactly, you're 18,
In a
first time
strange
out of
place.
home. Yeah, exactly. So fear of the unknown's taking over and stuff. You're a little nervous. You're trying not to make too many mistakes, but you didn't even realize that. You're like, oh, they bring you into the building, and all that after you lined up and all that. You're like, oh, that I've heard all these stories about how bad it is when you first show up to basic training. That wasn't too bad, and I didn't realize that that's just reception,
Yeah,
and that you do 3 days there getting your shots and all that, and then you would actually go to basic training, and that was your reception and integration day 0. That was the real day that we were expecting, and we thought that would be right off the bus right in the beginning, but it's interesting,
The now, there's always been that debate between Army boot camp, Marine Corps boot camp.
Yep.
Nowadays, Marine Corps boot camp, from what I see, you guys will probably argue with me on this all day because it's just in your fucking nature. But the Marine Corps boot camp's still the toughest.
So especially nowadays, I would have to agree with you. So the Marine Corps has kind of been, by and large, and again, this is still going back a few years from when I was in the reserves, but at the time, and the Army's been changing the way basic training's done. Some good things, some bad, but the Marine Corps has kind of always been left untouched by what we call like TRADOC in the Army, which is like training and doctrine and command, like basically all of the leaders of training, and they're all officers, and they kind of change all the rules and everything like that. The Marine Corps, they kind of left alone, which we as I was a drill sergeant in the Army as well. We were always jealous of how the Marine Corps was able to do stuff in boot camp and everything like that. But there are some positives and there are some negatives, and there are things that they did in Marine Corps boot camp that the Army's taken and changed around their stuff to kind of mirror some of it, and it's always trying to adapt and change to be more relevant and more efficient.
Yeah.
In some ways it's good, some ways it's bad,
Yeah. So now the Army boot camp, was it back then, 2004, was it still 9 weeks?
It's 56 days.
Okay.
Yeah. So 56 days was it. But because, like I said, we did OSIT, it was like basically 10 weeks of basic training, but then, you would transition into AIT, but because we were in a combat arms OSIT thing, it was like the transition was seamless. It went from one day to the next day, and it was like from the very beginning, day 0, when we were getting off the bus, not at reception, but actually at our boot camp with our drill sergeants, they were all combat engineers. Everybody who was in the basic
Gotcha.
training was combat engineers, and they were teaching us, like, you know, the first lesson they told us, they said, you know, pink mist. That's what you go. Who knows what pink mist is?
Yeah.
And he's like, that's what combat engineer becomes when they make a mistake.
Yeah.
And you guys are fucking up left and right. You know, kind of trying to send that home, but it's like, you kind of makes you, you know, more proud to be a part of that training because you knew everybody was all here for the same job.
Yeah.
It was kind of nice, you know, on that part of it. But yeah, it's kind of weird because it's, you know, it's supposed to be 56 days for basic training, but with combat arms, it's like just all together.
All right.
We didn't have a graduation from boot camp. It was graduation from AIT and boot camp together. You know?
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's but yeah, with the Marines, it's you go to boot camp, then you go to your either infantry training battalion or MOS school. Well, actually, no, not MOS school. It's like, oh, I'm trying not to go all Marine Corps bro here. MCT, Marine Combat Training, and then those guys go to their MOS school. So it's like just a long, take you a year until you can finally get to your actual MOS.
Yeah.
So, when did you finally get to your unit? You know, what year?
So I got to my unit in 2005 because I graduated boot camp. It was just before Christmas in 2004. And then the Army, I don't, you know, there's a break that goes on. Like, they don't schedule boot camp, like, or if they do schedule it, it's like they'll send troops home and stuff. But it's like, you know, there's a break in training to allow for all of training to, you know, like the people running everything and all that. There's like a week long break, and they didn't start another airborne school because it was part of my contract as well. So I was in this weird limbo where I wasn't going home for Christmas, but I wasn't going to airborne school until like the beginning of January. So it was like I kind of had to spend 2 weeks with my drill sergeants, and they're like, you know, grumpy as all hell because they're like, you know, we want to go home, but we have, you know, a handful of you guys that we have to babysit. Yeah. So they kind of fuck with us a little bit, but yeah, I went to airborne school. That's 3 weeks, and then in like February, I ended up going to my regular Army unit.
Okay. Airborne school. How was that?
It was certainly interesting. So you can remember what it was like when you first came into the Marine Corps, that the rank structure is absolute. That, you know, if somebody outranks you, they outrank you, period, across the board. Like, and officers were basically, you had no experience with them. You don't even know how to address them, or you know how to address them, but you basically have nothing with them. And going to airborne school, I remember day 0 of airborne school when you're there, and there was we called them Sergeant Airbornes, were the instructors. You know, the Sergeant Airborne was an E6, and he was screaming at a major and making a major do push-ups and all this other stuff. And I was just like, my mind couldn't wrap my head around what's going on. I'm like, how is an E6 yelling at a major? Like, that doesn't work, you know? And so it was kind of interesting there. And, you know, we had nights and weekend. We had nights off anyways while you were there because it's a regular school, you know? But they said, you know, they tell you you're not allowed to walk in airborne school ever. They tell you, like, walking is unauthorized from this moment until you finish. You have to run everywhere you go.
Oh, okay.
And they say, like, the only time you're not allowed to run is when you're in the chow hall and you're carrying your food. Other than that, you're running. And it's kind of funny because, you know, you're calling cadence and you're running around everywhere. It's a little ridiculous. But we had an interest. I don't want to say interesting, but I guess interesting is a good word. The first ever line of duty death that I had encountered in my time in the Army was in airborne school. I had Private First Class Megan Adelman. She had a partial malfunction with her parachute on our second jump, and she burned in on the drop zone.
Oh,
she was in my stick, actually, and she was in my squad, and so it was a bit of a situation. You know, we had you know, I'm on the drop zone packing my chute, and she's, you know, I guess she crashed behind me because I just remember looking up and I see a Humvee flying across the drop zone. I turn around and I just see like a cloud of dust on the drop zone. I'm like, oh no, what happened? You know, and then they, you know, but they made us go to the funeral and everything else like that, and it was a good time because, like, you know, you've seen all the movies where they Navy SEALs, they take off their wings and they put them, their trident, and they hammer it into the.
Yeah.
They did that for her, but
Oh,
all the instructors took off the airborne wings and
Okay.
hit them on the casket. It was a pretty interesting thing. We had 79 people quit the next day after that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's a voluntary school. They tell you the whole time.
Yeah.
Airborne's voluntary. It's all volunteer. So,
Damn.
and I'm like, why? I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm like, everybody knows you're jumping out of airplanes. Like, you could die.
Yeah.
And to see it there, and then for all those people to quit, I'm like, you didn't expect this. Like, I don't know. I thought that this was happening pretty regularly. Like, people would die jumping out of airplanes, but apparently it didn't happen that often, and it was a big deal.
So what did they ended up finding out about, like, the parachute? Obviously,
the story that I read about it, she was a small person.
Yeah.
She was like no bigger than our wives, and she at the time we used to jump these parachutes called MERPs. There was a modified improved reserve parachute system, and they had a right hand ripcord grip. We used to wear our reserves in basically a pouch right on our thing. So every time you see a picture of somebody who's airborne, they have their hand, they're covering the ripcord grip because it's just basically a big metal ring.
Okay.
And they're covering it so that way it doesn't get deployed. So that's important that she had a right hand one.
Yeah.
She was standing on the left side of the right side of the plane, but we face backwards when we're going to exit out. So she would be walking with the outside of the plane to her left, and she was hooked up to the static line. And from what I understand is when you have the static line come to your chute, you're supposed to keep your elbow up the whole time, so that way that static line doesn't fall down. And from what I understand, she let her elbow fall down, and when she brought it back up, now the static line was going under her arm, and so when she was walking out the door, she handed off her static line to the safety and lets it go and brings her hand down to cover her reserve. The static line is now coming through her armpit, and when she came out, the main parachute wrapped around her arm, her right arm.
Oh, shit.
And some people say they saw her doing the L position, which is like you do that when you exit the aircraft, and that's how you're supposed to like stay in that position. So she did that, and they said they saw her like So short story longer, they said that her arms were too short to be able to reach across and pull the right hand ripcord grip with her left arm because how small she was. And from that moment on, actually all the airborne school transitioned to what they call soft loop center pull reserves, where you pull straight up. You wouldn't use either hand.
So the equipment you were using was pretty much just old.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, it's old. It was old technology.
Yeah,
but it was basically the same. Like everything else, something has to go wrong before they change something.
Yeah, unfortunately, it has to be like that. But
yeah, and those were the old parachutes. I know nowadays they jump with like these square parachutes, and you have toggles, and you can steer them. We were jumping T10 Deltas, which were just round olive drab parachutes, and you can't really control them. They tell you to slip away, and which means just grabbing one of your risers and pulling it down, and it really doesn't do anything. It's just kind of, you fall like a brick and you hit the ground hard, and you get VA ratings.
So now, when you what years did you get deployed?
So,
Just so you know, we're gonna be jumping all over the place.
That's right. That's fine. 05 came to my unit. We did a little quick mission up to West Point for a summer in 05 where we're teaching classes, just demonstrating what it's like to be a combat engineer. And it was a cool experience. And then the 82nd, like one of the, battalions that we were with, they were supposed to, when they deploy as a battalion, as an infantry battalion, they're supposed to take a company of combat engineers with them to augment into them to kind of, like they would have medics incorporated into more corpsmen with the Marine Corps. And so we were slotted to go to Iraq in 05 with these guys, the Blue Devils. And then Katrina happened in September of 05, and we were home on leave, and they called us back to, Fort Bragg and everything. And they said like, or they put us on standby. They said, we might go down to help out with Katrina, which, we always were like, people were like, you can't do that. You can't deploy regular Army in the States, but I think it was like kind of unforeseen circumstances. That the National Guard was getting attacked and stuff. It's kind of similar to what's going on down in North Carolina right now. But so short story longer, we got off the off the ticket going to Iraq in 05, and then we ended up deploying with 10th Mountain in '06 to go to Afghanistan in February.
All right. Now Fort Bragg. So I know we always bumped into you guys out on Libo during the weekends, either in Greenville,
Yeah, Wilmington. Yeah.
Wilmington, Myrtle Beach.
Yep.
And what did you do on the weekends when you were at Bragg?
I was E nothing, who was like 19. You know, I drank my face off, and I don't know, just saved my time, and I don't know, we just kind of messed around a little bit. I did some hiking. I tried to do, just hanging out with guys in the barracks. Drive my car, exploring a couple different things. Didn't really do a whole lot because we weren't. So I did 3 years active. It was from August '04 to August of '07. So I didn't get to my unit until February '05, and then we spent that summer at West Point, and then a couple months later we went to Afghanistan, and we got back from Afghanistan. I was basically getting out. So all in all of my 3 years in active duty, I was only at Bragg for maybe 6 months out of it.
Okay.
So it really wasn't a whole lot. I did go to Wilmington for like 4th of July, and that was actually one of the coolest experiences ever.
Yeah.
Like standing in the waves, with the waist deep water, watching fireworks going off right over your head. It was awesome.
Yeah, that whole area is just, I fucking love North Carolina.
Yeah, it was awesome. Man. That was like the only thing. And like, Fayetteville, I don't know if you've been to Fayetteville, but
It's a dump.
it's a dump. Yeah.
Yeah, so
we
it
go
was
to
Jacksonville.
yeah, we go to the strip clubs and all this other stuff and off limit bars and all that. But
The off-limit bar.
yeah, there was this place called Mickey's. It was, you'd go there, and it was funny because it was like a real dive bar, and we
Yeah.
would go there, and they would put Sharpie on your hands if you weren't 21.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd do that, and then they would have a red Mickey Mouse stamp that they would put on you if you were 21. So the first thing we do, we go in there, they'd mark our hands, make a beeline for the bathroom, scrub that shit off, and then somebody had a red pen, and you just draw a Mickey, and then you smudge it, and then you're good, and then you go drinking, and it's stupid stuff like that,
Dude. We had this bar. I can't remember what it was. It was an Irish place. And it was off limits, and I didn't know it was off limits. And I walked in there, and all of a sudden I'm just getting like rushed by like two bouncers. They're like, "You can't be in here. Get the fuck out of here." And I'm like, "What's wrong?"
Yeah.
They're like, "Marines are not allowed in here." I'm like,
Oh, one of the off limits bars. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, "Roger that." Okay. So, I mean, I was just fresh out of SOI, I was
Yeah.
just-
You didn't know what was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to get the feel for the town, and it's a shithole.
Yeah.
So, and all the hotels, it's like, I remember one of the hotels that I stayed at before I checked into infantry training battalion. Apparently it was an off-limits motel. And, I wake up and,
Paid by the hour kind of place,
there was like 30 business cards slid under the door saying, "Oh, get your escort now."
Oh,
And
yeah, yep.
I was like, "What the hell is this place? Ain't Massachusetts no more, man."
Nope.
So when you were an engineer, you guys used APOBs and stuff like that.
I don't know what an APOB is.
Or maybe it was it an APOB? I don't remember. But it's like that backpack that's got the grenades, that are like daisy chained together to clear routes.
Oh, so that's like a man pack version of like the Miklik.
Yes.
The Miklik, we had those. We didn't use them. I think the Miklik was the only time I ever heard about them being used overseas was the Marines actually using them.
Yeah, we use them a lot.
Yeah, and we didn't actually end up using them because we weren't doing minefield clearance or anything like that. There was parts of our unit that were doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But they used machinery to do it rather than that. That's more like the hasty stuff. We were doing more
Yeah.
deliberate stuff,
Yeah, dude, those things are crazy.
Yeah.
Like-
a lot of mechanized units had those too. And we were, light units, so we had a trailer, but we didn't never use it,
That it'd scare the hell out of you because it's just like shoots off like a missile, and then you see it get straight and then just fall straight down. Bow, 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 bow. And it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Because we had, so when we pushed into Marja, we used those for like 2 miles straight.
Oh yeah.
Because that was all the intel. Intel was worst case scenario, friggin' Omaha Beach,
Yep.
So we're just gonna, keep clearing. And, they always said, like, oh, why did it take you guys so long to clear? It's like, well, our metal detector picks something up every 10 feet. So we just started using the APOBs and clearing lanes for us at least. Because once we got to the river that, when you cross the river, then you're in Marja. So we had to walk behind a bulldozer all the way up to the river. Mm-hmm. Then we had to put a footbridge across, which are very unsafe.
Yeah. I can only imagine what that thing looked like,
Dude. Because, I mean, we got to put together fairly quick.
Yeah.
But then our platoon, we had to be able to get it across in one shot. Mm. And, I mean, I think we did. I can't remember if we did, but running across that sucker, though, dude, I thought everybody was going into the canal because it starts bouncing and it's like, oh my God. But no, we did a lot of work with the Marine Corps engineers, and it's similar to what you guys do for the most part. Now, you and I were out in Afghanistan, I believe, maybe around the same time. So in 2010,
I was there in 06.
06?
Yeah.
Man, it was something. We have another engineer in our group that was.
Yeah, there's a few guys that were in that time frame. I think I forget who, but yeah, a bunch of guys were up there in 2010, 11, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's just I liked working with the engineers. I know after I got out of the Marine Corps and I was gonna go back into the military, I was gonna join the Guard and become a engineer. But I was like, you know what, fuck that.
I don't blame you.
So, now so you went to Iraq in 2000 and
I went to Afghanistan. In 06. Yeah,
okay.
like end of March of 06. I think it said February earlier, but I meant March. Yeah.
What part of Afghanistan?
So all in RC East, which obviously all along the Pakistan border.
Okay.
The first 5 months, I was up in the Kunar province, which is like Jalalabad, Asadabad, the Pesh River Valley, Korangal Valley, up that area and stuff. Like, I didn't actually make entrance into the Korangal, but we were at the entrance to the Korangal. We were like a couple of clicks away from where Operation Red Wings had happened. Lone Survivor with Marcus Luttrell and stuff. Like, that was the year before we were there. That was in the Korangal Valley and stuff.
Okay.
And we were basically running route clearance through the Pesh River, like up and down from Asadabad and Jalalabad up to Camp Blessing and all the stuff. And now the FOBs have changed names and stuff like that since, but just basically doing route clearance between all the combat outposts up there and stuff. Okay. Just every day driving, just looking for IEDs and stuff.
Yeah, waiting for them to just blow up underneath your MRAP.
Oh yeah, yeah. And sometimes we had some of the engineer units, they got to use the big truck that had the arm on it and stuff that was called a Buffalo. We couldn't fit that on some of the roads that we were on, so we didn't. All we had was if we had a hit, we had to get out there on foot and go investigate it on foot.
Were you guys able to have the mine sweeper, the attachment that goes on the front of the trucks?
No, so that would have been like on the Buffalo or something like that. Would have been able to go and dig stuff up. We didn't have any sort of anything that provides standoff to protect us. Short story longer, we had like basically an e-tool. You go out there and you dig it up by hand, and we had, which is obviously not the most desirable place to be when you get a hit for an IED or you go on a specific IED response. Which we had 2 missions. It was basically you'd go route clearance every day, or like in the front of a unit. Sometimes you'd lead the way for a unit or something like that, just clearing. And that was just, a prophylactic that was just in case. Like you're trying to keep it clear all the time. And then we had IED responses where there was, either a unit or, a local national had saw an IED being placed or suspected IED, and they tell the FOB, and then we'd go out and investigate where that was. And a lot of people associate that with like EOD. But with the amount of IEDs across both theaters and stuff like that, they kind of had to soften up the rules and kind of spread the wealth, because there wasn't enough EOD to go around. So we were called like EOCA. We had guys that were EOCA guys, which short story longer, it's basically like I say like it's an EMT basic if EOD is a paramedic. And we could get rid of IEDs. We could BIP them, blow them in place, as long as they were below a certain tonnage and they weren't CBRN. If they were CBRN, okay, then, or if they were above a certain amount, we had to call EOD. And a lot of times on our missions, we'd have EOD in with us. And they most of the time didn't do anything.
Dude, God, I felt bad for our EOD guys, because we had, between two companies, we only had 3 EOD techs. And so we ended up being there. We had to escort them around every time a call came in. And it was just long days, man, And but then you get to the platoons, and they were just like, they're like, oh, it's about time you guys got here. It's like, dude, I just walked 12 clicks to get here.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Like, do you have any water? Oh no, bro. And I'm like it's a little bit longer of a walk, and but it was funny, because when we were doing regular patrols without EOD, we hated calling in IEDs.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Because you're hitting your checkpoints on the patrol, and then you find an IED. It's like, fuck.
Now you're gonna wait.
Now we're gonna be here for 6 hours,
and
man.
you're sitting duck.
Yeah. It's hot out. You miss a chow.
Yep.
So,
that's why they make rippets, right?
Oh, dude. Yeah, let's go shotgun some rippets, guys.
That's it. They're piss hot.
So, everybody, this is the end of part 1 with Mike White. It just ended very abruptly, but be sure to tune in for part 2. Gee, I need a break. You awake?
Well, Johnny Cash, another episode in the books. That's it for today, but the journey doesn't end here. Every veteran has a story, and every story deserves to be heard. If you're a veteran with a message, a challenge, or a triumph to share, we want you to join us.
Your experience matters to us, and together we can inspire others and remind the world what resilience truly looks like. Until next time, stay strong, stay connected, and remember, you're never alone in this fight. We'll see you on the next episode.
Ho!